Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all, and I do mean all, of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. Got some interesting stuff to get to today. I will say I have not seen Dune Part 2 yet. I'm going to watch it tonight. I was thinking of should I watch Dune, or should I record this episode after I watched the movie, and I kind of decided, I'm good. After I watched the movie, and then after record like a review for it for the main channel, get it edited as quickly as possible so that I could hit like some sort of hype train as fast as I feasibly can. And it's just like, I'd rather just record this at like the regular slotted time that I have every week to record Nerdy Movie News Roundup. So no Dune review here. I'll talk about it next week. I will say though, I did rewatch the first Dune, so I will talk about Dune Part 1. So there will be Dune content in this episode. It just won't be the content that literally anybody cares about, but it is what it is. First, story of the day. We got a Naruto movie coming out. I've never seen Naruto, but maybe I'll like the live action adaptation, because that always works out, doesn't it? So this is coming from The Hollywood Reporter. Naruto is headed to the big screen. Destin Daniel Cretton, who co-wrote and directed the Marvel Studios movie Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, has been tapped to pen and helm a live action adaptation of the title for Lionsgate. So that article did go on to say that the original creator of Naruto is also on board with Destin Daniel Cretton directing. Like he kind of handpicked Destin. So I guess that should be promising for people that are fans of Naruto. Like you're the guy that made the fucking show, or I think it was the manga actually. He liked Destin Daniel Cretton's directing, so he picked him. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know anything about Naruto, but I liked Shang-Chi. I thought it was a fun movie. I think when you look at the action, he's very good at directing action. Like that bus fight scene is one of the better fight scenes in the MCU. I mean, it's up there with like the like fight scenes from The Winter Soldier, and if we're gonna include them now, Daredevil. So we'll see how this goes. I think Naruto there's like mysticism to it, right? Like I don't think it's all just ninjas. Or like hand-to-hand combat. I think there's also magic and stuff, so we'll see how that gets adapted into live action, and if it is smart to even attempt to adapt it into live action. Next story. The Thing is going to be CGI, so of course we know Eben Moss Backrack. He's gonna be playing The Thing, and he talked about it in a video that we will watch now.
Have you been fitted for your rocks yet? Or will this be like a CGI thing like the Hulk in the Marvel movies?
I don't think it's the suit. Yeah, apparently, I think in the past they've done a suit. Michael Chiklis wore a suit. Apparently the suit was really uncomfortable.
Yeah, suits.
And we're past that, I think. It's a little kind of cosplay, kind of, it's a little amateur, that stuff, now with the technology we have. So yeah, I think it's mostly performance capture. I think that's what motion capture.
I will say, I mean, this is expected, I think, like now that we have motion capture, I think there are very few actors that would want or be willing to go through what Michael Chiklis went through. But I remember liking the way that Michael Chiklis's thing looked. I actually thought it looked pretty good. I never thought it looked ridiculous or anything like that. So I wouldn't have minded a practical thing, to be totally honest with you. But I assume they're going to want him to be very imposing as well, and he's probably going to be a lot taller, of course, than Eben Moss is. So that's probably a factor here. So I'm sure it'll be fine. Like hopefully they go for like Thanos level CGI and not the weird elf guy in the Eternals post-credits scene levels of CGI. That's a very specific reference, I know, but if you remember how that guy looked like, you'll know why I picked it out. So yeah. Next story. We're getting a Jurassic League movie. This is coming from CBR. Industry insider Jeff Snyder recently reported the news that an animated film based on the Jurassic League comics is in the works under DC Studios. DCU had James Gunn is reportedly producing the movie with Brian Lynch, Minions, Puss in Boots, The Secret Life of Pets, writing the script. I don't know anything about the Jurassic League, so I can't say whether or not this has like precedence of being a genuinely good idea, you know, from the comics and whatnot, or if this is just like, you know, like the, what was it, the DC League of Super Pets type movie where they just want to shit out an Illumination style movie to try to get in the kids. I don't know what kind of situation this is going to end up being, but hopefully they don't just like, hopefully they take it seriously and we get like a Puss in Boots in The Last Wish where it's like, oh yeah, guess what? You can make a kids movie and also just make a good movie. It's like that is possible. Doesn't have to be one way or the other. So, I don't know. I mean, listen, as of right now, I have a certain level of optimism for James Gunn. I think having a creative, being the CEO of, or the co-CEO of the DCU, gives me hope that the projects or it gives me hope that we're not going to get completely soulless products. But the notion of a Jurassic League movie does give me pause in that optimism, because it sounds like a cash grabby movie that's just trying to go for like the DreamWorks thing. But we'll see. I can't say anything more about it. All right. So, the voice actor for Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, I'll be specific. He said some interesting things about the future of Peter Parker in the Insomniac Spider-Man games universe. It's come from VGC. There have been some comments recently that were picked up to infer that Peter's out and Miles is in, he said. While I think that Peter would love to believe that he can just turn it off and not be Spider-Man anymore and live a completely normal life, I don't think that's what's going to happen now. I don't know. I haven't read a script yet. They're probably still working on it, but I don't think that's the last we're going to see Peter. I think it's a cool place to leave it. It's a cool change for him. I think 100% he trusts Miles, Lowenthal continued. Miles has recently stepped up, and he's like, oh, maybe I can get a little break. And I did get a vacation to Sincaria during the Miles game. Not much of a vacation, but at least, I don't know if I copied and pasted this wrong, but at least MJ got to learn to ride a motorcycle, which is awesome. So here's the thing. Let's just read this bit again. While I think that Peter would love to believe that he can just turn it off and not be Spider-Man anymore and live a completely normal life, I don't think that's what's going to happen now. I remember being so surprised at the outrage from people that were like, they're replacing Peter with Miles. Peter Parker's Spider-Man. Miles Morales isn't Spider-Man. Blah, I'm going to turn it into a weird social political thing. It's like, do you morons, you actual, smooth-brained morons. In what universe was Peter Parker not going to come back? It's like, it's so stupid. It's like everything is so politicized now that you can't even like tell certain stories. You can't even like leave things in an interesting place storyline wise in order to then pick up in the next game without people losing their minds. It's so stupid. It's like when you look at the end of Spider-Man 2, spoiler alert for the second game, I guess. It's like, they're teasing Norman Osborn and Otto Octavius to come back as the villains. Motherfucker, you think Miles is gonna be the sole protagonist in a game where they're teasing villains that Peters has like very close connections with? It's like Miles has never met Norman Osborn or Otto Octavius. It's like, what? You don't think Peter's going to be a main character in that game? Obviously, they're just telling an interesting story of Peter quote unquote retiring, thinking he can give up the mask when he's not actually going to be able to. That's so obvious. It's so like the fact that people were getting mad is so stupid. Now listen, to be fair, the voice actor is saying that he hasn't read the scripts, But it's like, of course he's gonna come back. Of course you're still gonna be able to play as Peter in Spider-Man 3. And I'll say this as well. Even if they did at some point decide to like make Miles the main Spider-Man, the fact that people would have an inherent problem with that is kind of weird. I don't know. It's like I get that maybe you just like Peter a lot. I love Peter as well. He's my favorite superhero of all time. Well, Daredevil has kind of become my favorite superhero, but anyways, nobody cares about that. I love Spider-Man. I love Peter Parker. But it's like, if they just want to tell a Miles story, who gives a shit? What? Oh, is the game good? I feel like that's the only question we should really be asking. Oh, is the game good? Is the gameplay fun? Is the story good? Okay. Like, let artists make art, and then if the art is good, then the art is good. If the art is bad, then the art is bad. But let artists go for things. Let artists tell the stories they want to tell. It's like, can we stop? Can we just stop being cringe? I don't know. Probably not. But it is what it is. All right, next story. So PlayStation had some layoffs recently, and this is a video game story. We don't necessarily talk about video games on this channel, but the fact that PlayStation makes the Spider-Man games, they're about to start making X-Men games, I feel like it was important to bring it up. So this is coming from Video Games Chronicle. There will be a headcount reduction. Sorry, I had to take a phone call. There will be a headcount reduction of about 900 people, or about 8% of our current workforce. The layoffs will impact employees across all Sony Interactive Entertainment, SIE regions. Several PlayStation studios will be affected. So, we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff here, actually. Like, we're going to talk about Mandalorian games and then Marvel games in general. But I guess I'll note at the top here that the video games industry is kind of in a bit of a free fall. We've seen like I was reading an article the other day, like 59 studios have big layoffs. Like almost 10,000 game devs have been laid off, and it is seeming like this could end up having an impact on like superhero games. And like superhero and Star Wars games, which is, stuff that we talk about here. So let's actually skip to the next story here and talk about the Mandalorian game. So a couple of weeks ago, it was reported that we were going to end up getting a Mandalorian game. It's now been canceled. This is coming from Video Games Chronicle. We have decided to pivot away from early development on a Star Wars FPS action game to focus our efforts on new projects based on our owned brands, while providing support for existing games. And then let's read this here as well. This is a quote from the CEO. We are also sunsetting games and moving away from development of future licensed IP that we do not believe will be successful in our changing industry. So, here's the thing. First of all, if we want to talk about that Mandalorian game, that's obviously disappointing. I think, we kind of got some information about that, and like in the Mandalorian game, we were going to be like hunting bounties and whatnot. It wasn't going to be like an open world necessarily, but there was supposed to be like a hub area from where you could pick bounties to hunt and whatnot. And it's like, that sounds cool. It's like a first person game. You were going to have a jetpack, so there was going to be like vertical gameplay as well. And yeah, EA is moving away from that. And then when you look at that quote, he's saying we're going to move away from future licensed IP. They're currently working on an Iron Man and a Black Panther game. What that kind of tells me is that they might finish that, though. They might finish those games, but those games probably aren't going to get sequels. And they'll probably make a third Star Wars Jedi game, but that's probably going to be it as far as their Star Wars output is concerned. And they're going to start focusing on their own shit, which is not inherently bad, but I haven't played Jedi Survivor yet, but I really like Jedi Fallen Order, and I mean, yeah, if we're gonna get if we're gonna end up getting an Iron Man game and a Black Panther game that's of the level of quality as the as Jedi Fallen Order, I'm like, that sounds that I would like more of that. This is kind of a bummer. So yeah, and as far as why they're moving away from this, I actually think that we can look at what we reported on late last year was when the Spider-Man developers, their Insomniac Games, they actually got hacked, and we got a bunch of information regarding how they operate and whatnot. And so Marvel, they take a significant chunk of the of the revenue from those games. Like they have to Marvel takes it depends on it didn't say exactly, but it was like 9 to 20% of the revenue from sales. And there are differences, when it's physical game sales or digital game sales or DLC and whatnot, but they take a significant chunk of revenue. And they have a bunch of rules and whatnot, and it's when you look at how bad the games industry is, I wonder if EA just kind of went, listen, obviously making an Iron Man and a Black Panther game is gonna give us inherent eyeballs on our game, but is it really worth it to share the revenue with Marvel when it's maybe we'll sell less copies of an original IP, but it's all that money's gonna be ours. Maybe that's the game that they've decided they want to play, and it makes me wonder how are other studios going to be evaluating things. Ubisoft is making a Star Wars game, right? They're making Star Wars Outlaws. Is Ubisoft going to maybe pivot away from licensed IP as well, if this is how these things work? We're getting that Star Wars Eclipse game from the David Cage studio. I don't remember what they're called. But it's are they going to want to make that bet? We're supposedly getting a Knights of the Old Republic game still. That game's apparently not canceled. But are they going to want to continue making stuff after that? We're getting that Captain America and Black Panther team up game as well. Is that going to be a one and done thing? I don't know. Because I also have to look at what Disney's moves recently, because they've Disney invested, I think, $15 billion in Epic Games, the creators of Fortnite. Part of me is also wondering have they known that this was coming? Are they now maybe pivoting over to team up with Epic Games and Fortnite to make their games content? And I'm I mean, I get it, but I don't really want that. I don't want the future of Marvel and Star Wars to be fucking Fortnite skins or weird Marvel games that are made in the Fortnite engine, because I know Fortnite is kind of trying to turn into Roblox, where they're making games within Fortnite. But it's I don't want that Marvel to just be that. I want the big budget, the big AAA narrative based games like Spider-Man and Marvel's not Marvel's Avengers, but Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's just, I don't know, it's disappointing. And it seems I think we're probably still gonna get Sony, the Sony game. So we're gonna get the Venom Lethal Protector game and Spider-Man 3, and then obviously they're also making Wolverine, and they're gonna make X-Men games after that. We're most definitely gonna get those games, I think, because my guess is that, and obviously I don't know how any of this works for sure, but Sony probably sees it as a valuable proposition for them, because at the end of the day, the Marvel Spider-Man games, yes, do they want to make profits off of them? Obviously. But they're also probably just PlayStation 5 commercials. Hey guys, sorry, so I had to go deal with a real life situation in the middle of recording. Obviously not going to get into that. Nothing serious or anything. But I had to leave, deal with it. Then it was time for me to go watch the Dune movie. So I am now back from that. I have now seen Dune Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. So I will talk about it here. So that just going to put that out there. But let me get back into what I was saying. Oh, you can see I have the movie cup. By the way, yes, I do fill up my my drink after the movie. So anytime I go see a movie, I have 2 cups of soda. Is it healthy? Absolutely not. But I am going to get my money's worth, God damn it, for the arm and the leg that they take from me every time I go to the movie theater. Anyway, I was talking about Marvel games. Yes, I was basically saying that I think it's worth it for Sony to make the Spider-Man games because, and you know, they're Marvel games because they sell PS5 consoles, right? Like, that's why I think the Marvel tax is worth it for them. I think the same is going to apply to Xbox when they look at their Indiana Jones game and they look at the Blade game that they're making. In a lot of ways, those are Xbox, not so much console advertisements, but Xbox Game Pass advertisements, because those games are going to go to Game Pass, and there are going to be a lot of people. It's going to entice a lot of people to sign up for the subscription service or buy an Xbox. So I think we'll get them games like that from the major publishers. It seems like it's possible, right? EA is the only person that's done this, so I might be freaking out over nothing, but it definitely seems possible that third-party publishers get scared away from making Marvel games. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, let's move on to the next story. So Josh Brolin, in a recent interview, he said something interesting regarding Cable possibly showing up in Deadpool and Wolverine. So let's watch the video here.
I want to ask you about the villain that you played in Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
Want to know, will we see him again in Deadpool and Wolverine?
Sure. I don't know. I don't know. No. I'll check with my bookkeeper.
Okay.
I don't know if that. I can't say anything.
Okay.
I mean, you can't. Yes.
Wow.
No.
That says it all.
Maybe.
There'll be a lot of phone calls after the show.
Maybe. I'm in every movie coming out in the next year.
Good for you, though. You kind of are.
Yeah, small
Happy for
parts,
you.
but you know, I don't know.
Busy man.
I think it's going to be a good movie, though.
Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
Always
It's
fun.
always nice to see you guys.
So yeah, very interesting. I mean, I feel like a lot of actors will normally just say, no, I'm not in that. I don't know anything about it. It's just kind of interesting that Josh Brolin would just deny it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, he also, I wonder if it's one of those things also where it's like, he plays so many roles that are probably like green screened, where his agent is just like, hey, go to this LA soundstage. You're going to do so, and read the dialogue that's there. And he's just like in front of a green screen and he has no idea what the hell he's shooting. I mean, that's not a thing that happens, but I'm just being facetious there. No, I think the fact that he's facetious there, or what am I saying? The fact that he's kind of not denying it there, I think that kind of makes me think that he is probably going to show up in Deadpool and Wolverine. I mean, especially since we know that this movie is essentially going to be the Spider-Man No Way Home of the Fox X-Men movies. I'm kind of expecting everybody to show up, man. Like, I'm expecting like Halle Berry to show up. I'm expecting what's his face, the Cyclops actor. I feel like he's probably gonna show up. I think Patrick Stewart is gonna show up. I think even if it's for a little bit, I think everybody's gonna show up and make an appearance. And I think this movie is going to serve as a final goodbye to the Fox X-Men universe, and Cable is a part of that. So I think he will show up, but we'll see if and to what extent. All right. Next up, let's look at Superman. So, James Gunn on Instagram showed off our first look at David Cornsweat's Superman suit. So, here we see it. It's, you got the blue and the red and the yellow here. People have been saying that it looks a lot like the Kingdom Come Superman logo. And people have been kind of going, does that mean oops, sorry, wait. People have been saying, does that mean that the movie is going to take inspiration from Kingdom Come in terms of the story. And it's one of those things where I'm like, listen, we can never really look at these things and like take it as a hint as to where the story is going to go. Because if we look at like comic book movies, they will literally title themselves after like the comic book runs and then just do something completely different. Right? Like I've never read these comic book runs, to be fair. Like I'm mostly a movie person, but I remember constantly hearing from like comic book nerds that it's like, oh yeah, Avengers Age of Ultron is nothing like the Age of Ultron comic book arc. You know, I always remember hearing that X-Men Days of Future Past is nothing like X-Men Days of Future Past. So I'm not going to look at the Superman logo and be like, oh yeah, they're definitely adapting Kingdom Come. Like it's because it's not like Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, where James Gunn has explicitly like said that, yeah, we are adapting the Woman of Tomorrow comic book arc. Like that we are adapting that into a feature film, right? I wouldn't look too deep into it, especially because from what I understand, and again, I haven't read this, but I think Kingdom Come is where like Superman is older in it, and it's like, and we're getting like a younger Superman in David Cornsweet. So I don't think so. The only thing I could maybe see is that, again, I haven't read this. This is all hearsay and from my memory. I haven't looked into it, but I also think that there is some element of Kingdom Come in the sense that it is kind of about Superman's relationship with the world. And I think it's about Superman coming to terms with how he's going to deal with the world as Superman, right? As the most powerful being on Earth. Again, I could be totally wrong about that. And I definitely think we'll get something like that in the new Superman movie, because, you know, it's going to have a bunch of other superheroes like, you know, Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, and Hawk Girl, and a bunch of other guys. So I do think a part of that movie is Superman really coming to terms with how he is going to act within this new DCU. So if that is an element of Kingdom Come, I think that is something that we're going to see in this movie, where Superman is going to establish how he handles his relationships with other heroes and whatnot. So I don't know. We'll see. The other thing about it is that there's snow. So is that a Kingdom of Solitude or whatever? What is it called? The Fortress of Solitude? Is that a reference to soy picture or soy meme? What is it? I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do the meme. My camera angle isn't good enough. I don't know. Listen, I'm not New Rockstars, okay? I'm not going to make a 15-minute video just analyzing nothing. Oh, called out. Take that, New Rockstars guy. I'm just kidding. He's probably a nice guy. The other interesting thing is that, so he announced it on Instagram, and James Gunn said this: overjoyed to be announcing the start of principal photography on Superman today, February 29th, which just so happens to be coincidentally and unplanned Superman's birthday. When I finished the first draft of the script, I called the film Superman Legacy. By the time I locked the final draft, it was clear the title was Superman, Making Our Way to You, July 2025. So, yeah, that's definitely interesting. So it's no longer being called Superman Legacy. It's just Superman. And, I mean, listen, maybe he says it makes sense for the script, and I'm sure that's true. But I also think it's a good idea just from a marketing point of view, because when you hear Superman Legacy, that does admittedly sound like a sequel of some sorts. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if people that aren't plugged into Superman stuff and they hear, oh, a Superman Legacy is coming out, they might just think, oh, are they finally getting around to making a Henry Cavill Superman movie? I'm done with the DCEU. I don't care about that. I think if you hear that Superman is coming out, I think people might go, oh, is that like a new Superman movie? Hold on. And then they look into it and maybe they finally find out that, oh, they're rebooting it. Okay, maybe I'll give this a chance. I mean, I don't know how many of those people are out there, but, you know, when you're marketing, I mean, you gotta account for everybody. And yeah, I think just having Superman, I also just think it's like a clean title that is just emblematic of we're coming in. This is a new thing. Let's go. So we'll see. Hopefully in like 20 years they'll reboot it and they'll do like the Batman thing where it's like the Superman. Yeah, because I think technically James Gunn also said that this is technically not like stealing the name from the 1978 Superman movie, because technically that movie was called Superman the Movie, which is like, sure, James Gunn, sure. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for the movie. Mostly just because I am a fan of James Gunn. Can't say that I'm a massive Superman fan. But I did really like My Adventures with Superman last year. So if I'm being completely honest, I could care less about how James Gunn is going to execute Superman punching Doomsday or whatever, or like the spectacle of it all. The main thing that I am looking for here is they have to nail the relationship between Clark and Lois. As a My Adventures with Superman fan, right, that is, again, I'm being completely honest, that is like my favorite iteration of the character. Sorry, Henry Cavill fans. I also really like the, what is it called, Superman and Lois show. I really enjoyed that as well. But my favorite iteration of the character is from My Adventures with Superman. And after watching that, I need to fall in love with Rachel Brosnahan and David Corenswet's chemistry. Like, this has to be on the level of Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. I feel like that is actually the most important thing that this movie has to nail. Again, more so than the action and the spectacle and blah, 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 blah. I think the trio of characters of Superman, Lois, and Jimmy, they have to nail it. Maybe I'm the only one that thinks that, but that is how I feel. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But next up, this is gonna be the last story of the day. We have a new cast members for The Last of Us Season 2. So we have Danny Ramirez, Tati Gabriel. Don't remember the other two people's names on the right. Let's actually read this bit from VGC, Video Games Chronicle. Danny Ramirez will play Manny, that's the guy on the left, described as a loyal soldier whose sunny outlook belies the pain of old wounds and a fear that he will fail his friends when they need him most. Ariella Barber will play Mel. I believe that is the second person to the right. That's that lady. I think that's who that is. Mel, said to be a young doctor whose commitment to saving lives is challenged by the realities of war and tribalism. Tati Gabriel has been cast as Nora. That is the person second to the left. The lady with the haircut. What am I saying? Bro, I am losing it. With the nose. There we go. Okay. Nora, a military medic struggling to come to terms with the sins of her past. And Spencer Lord, who is, of course, the last guy left, the guy to the right, who is a gentle soul. Oh, wait, sorry. Spencer Lord will appear as Owen, a gentle soul trapped in a warrior's body, condemned to fight an enemy he refuses to hate. So, yeah, I have, I'm a huge fan of The Last of Us Part 2. Hot take, it is my favorite piece of narrative media ever made. That game is. I mean, before I even get to analyzing it and maybe nitpicking it apart, and it's like, oh sure, maybe it's not paced the best, maybe it's too long, but at the end of the day, and it's obviously a very controversial game. I describe it as the Last Jedi of video games. I've simply never experienced a piece of narrative media, whether it be TV show, movie, video game, book, radio play, funny from a newspaper. I've simply never had a piece of narrative media emotionally impact me as The Last of Us Part 2, the game. It took me on an emotional journey like no other game. Made me feel genuine sadness, genuine happiness, genuinely made me reflect on my emotions and my attitude towards characters in a game in a way that I've just simply never experienced before. And so I say all of that to say that, yeah, I know all of these characters, and so here's the thing, right? here's what I'll say. Because I want to make this point without spoiling the game, in case you haven't played it. The fact that these characters are like described to the degree that they are, that they have these character descriptions, it signals to me that, and if you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. I don't think they're gonna. It's kind of sounding like they're not going to adapt it in a straightforward way as it is in the games. Like, again, if you've played the game, I think you know what I mean when I say that. The fact that these characters are seemingly, we're going to get to know them to the extent that they have these descriptions, it seems to me like they're changing things around in adapting the game to TV. And I feel conflicted about that because the way that the game played out was undoubtedly divisive. Like, I loved it, but I understand that not everybody did. And if you're going to adapt it for HBO, you definitely have to consider making changes to how the story is told. And so I understand that. At the same time, though, I feel like the way that the story is told in the game is important to getting across what the point of the game is. Like, that is what it is. The game is what it is, and it makes the decisions it makes for very specific reasons. And I think if you try to mess around with how the story is told, I feel like you kind of get away from the point of The Last of Us Part 2. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but so I'll leave it at that. But I think if you played the game, I think you know what I mean when I say that. So we'll see. We'll see how they handle it. I mean, I really enjoyed the first season. And I mean, the other thing is, we know that we're getting a season 3 as well. So they're not adapting the second game in one season of television. So it's definitely one of those things where it's like, if they were to adapt it as is, just if it plays out exactly as it plays out in the game, that would be a fucking ballsy move, bro. Especially, like, if you can just imagine the season finale. Damn, if they actually do that, bro, I would respect it. It's risky. It is certainly risky, but I'd low-key respect it. Anyways, I don't want to keep talking because I might end up spoiling it, but if you know, you know. But I don't know. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at how risky that would be if you would imagine what the season finale would be, and then you just cut it, and then the rest of the season is what it is. And then season 3 is what it is. Again, if you know, you know. If they do that, goddamn. But I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at how risky it would be. I don't think that they're going to do that. I don't think that's what they're going to do. But anyways, okay, I'm moving on because I'm being too vague. All right. So now we're going to get into what I've been watching. So first up, I finished watching the Avatar: The Last Airbender Netflix series, and I liked it. I did not love it. I do not think it is as good as the animated series, but I'm fine with it. And I'll say this as well. I think the series gets better as it goes along. Like, once I would say in the first, 3 or 4 episodes, I think, I was kind of like, yeah, all right, yeah, this is fine. This is, I like this for what it is. But in the second half of the season, I was like, no. I am enjoying this. Like, I am definitely enjoying this. And especially, the last 2 episodes, I was like, I feel like, one of the episodes, whenever they get to the, is it Koga? Like, the demon character that, takes your face or whatever. Like, when they actually got, when they got to that episode, I can't remember if it was, episode 6 or 7. But when they got to that episode and they started, messing around with that character and kind of doing interesting things with that character, I was like, this is cool. This is just straight up cool. And especially when you get to the last episode and you see that, damn, Netflix did not spare any expense with this series. And it's it's a cool finale, just from like a visual perspective, and even in terms of narrative. I thought it ended up working decently well. So I like the Netflix adaptation. I think if you've never seen the animated show, I think you'll enjoy it for sure. If you have seen the animated series, I mean, listen, if you're one of these people, or if you're the kind of person that whenever you're watching like an adaptation of something that you like, and you're just gonna be like autistically analyzing and being like, oh, they changed that, no, they did that differently, yeah, this isn't the same, this isn't how it happened in the original thing. If you're the person that autistically does that and that bothers you, you are probably gonna hate it. I mean, because it does change a lot. But I mean, yeah, if you just kind of appreciate it for what it is, I think you'll also decently enjoy it. And again, I'll just remind people, like, I personally do like the first season, but it's also the worst season. I think seasons 2 and 3 are definitely better. So I think there's a lot of room for this series to improve as it goes along. And I'll say this as well. I think that the actors are also not the strongest. Like, the performances aren't the strongest. So I am also looking to hopefully see the kids improve in terms of their acting prowess. And I'm definitely, I think they will continue working on their craft or whatever. So yeah, I enjoyed the series. Not as good as the animated series. I'm not somebody that looks at that and goes, oh, well, there's no point for it to exist. It's like, no, it's a good show. That's enough reason for it to exist. So yeah, let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. I also started watching Shogun. So this is a new series on FX and Hulu. I watched it on Disney Plus. And so it is a show that takes place in 16th century Japan. Wait. Dude, I am so terrible with centuries. I know when you say like 16th century, I know that either means like the 1700s or the 1500s. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forget. It takes place in the 1600s. But yeah, it's old timey Japan or whatever, and it's basically about like the kingdom. And there's like a power struggle going on. It's kind of Game of Thrones-ish, except there's no like mystical elements or anything. And there are like these settler characters, like Spanish settle. There's like a Spanish settler character, and there are like European settler characters, and they're kind of in the fray. But it's really all about this like the throne of the kingdom being kind of fought for. And it's very good. It is a very good series. I think it might be a little overrated, because I hear people saying that it's the best series in years. We're back in the golden age of television with Shogun. And I'm like, okay, it's not like you're gonna hear a lot of this from me in this episode, but I'm like, okay, we can calm down. But it's good. It's a really good show. I really enjoyed the first episode. I'm excited to watch the second one and finish the series. So yeah, Shogun, highly recommend it. Also really cool thing about it, it's just in Japanese. Like it's where you're not hearing like Japanese people speaking English. It's in Japanese and there are subtitles. I don't know if there are options to dub it, but I'm not a coward and I didn't do it. And yeah, and then there are English speaking characters, right? Because you have your like Western settlers and your like Spaniard that knows English. but yeah, it's all very much like realistic in that sense. And I really appreciate that. I've always been of the opinion of like, bro, just have your like ethnic characters or whatever speak their native language. I can read subtitles, okay. So yeah, really cool show. Definitely recommend it. I also watched the first Dune movie, Dune Part 1, and I'm not gonna lie, I hate this movie. I was shocked because I remember watching it when it first came out, and maybe it's because I never watched it in a theater. I watched it on HBO Max at my brother-in-law's house, actually, before he was my brother-in-law. But I watched it with him, And maybe it's because he's like a Star Wars nut, so I was like kind of feeding off of his energy. He was like, "Whoa, look, space! Look, we're in the sand. It's like Tatooine. Whoa!" And I remember being kind of more positive about it. But bro, I watched it again like a couple days ago in order to get ready for Dune Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. And I was bored out of my mind watching the first Dune. I don't think it's a good movie. I don't think it's interesting in any case. Like, the characters are not likable, really. Like I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't care that when any of them died. I didn't care when any of them were in danger. I'm not no spoilers for maybe my feelings changed after the second Dune, but like, when I watched the first Dune, could not get invested in the world and the plot. Unlike Shogun, I could not care less who ends up ruling the galaxy or whatever. Or, actually, I'm not clear. I'll say this, even after watching the second Dune. Is this a galactic thing? I guess it's not. Is it all just still on Earth? I think it might be, right? I'm actually not sure. Because I don't think that, like, the Emperor and whatever, I don't think they're coming from another planet, right? I don't think so. But yeah, the first Dune. Don't care about the world. Don't care about the plot. It looks pretty, sure, but I can't say I really care too much about it. And so I'll now go into the second Dune. Dune Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. There's Timothy. I liked it more, for sure, than the first Dune. I don't think it's nearly as boring, but again, I also didn't necessarily think that the second Dune was boring. Maybe in like a few years, whenever, I'm getting ready to watch Dune 3, I do wonder if maybe I'm gonna end up thinking that this second one is boring once I rewatch it and I kind of know everything that's gonna happen. That's possible, but I'll say this. I mean, I watched it tonight. I went to the theater, was not bored during it, but I still just have a lot of the same just feelings of like, I kind of don't care about any of these characters. I don't find them to be interesting. I don't know that I really care about the world. It's like, okay. Like, I'll say the world at least felt a bit larger in this one. Like I like that we go to where like the Emperor's is at, and then we also see the Harkonnen place. And it's like, at least the world doesn't feel as small as the first Dune. I think there's a lot more like action in this one. Like, there's a lot more warfare and whatnot. And I thought those scenes were genuinely really cool and really well done. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to really, like, at the end of the day, get into a movie when I just even though like all the technical aspects are like on point. You got Greg Fraser doing his thing. The movie looks incredible. I'm not gonna say that Denis Villeneuve is a bad director. I just there's a lot of technical aspects again, when it comes to cinematography and whatnot, and color grading, and just, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. The special effects, of course, are phenomenal. Like, there are certain sequences where I'm like, that's well directed, but the other day I just don't care that much about the story. And I even like everything that it's trying to like say, I'm like, it's kind of a little one-dimensional. Like, the whole thing where it's like, oh, look, is Timothy Chalamet, is he gonna be the Messiah? Oh, is he gonna be a god? And it's like, I don't want to spoil too much, and I don't remember how much was in the trailers, so I'll just say this. Like, yeah, there's a whole question of like, oh, was Timothy Chalamet gonna be the Messiah? And it's like, it goes in a certain direction, and I'm just like, yeah, I can. It's obvious where this is going, And like the ferrets, what are they called? The fetishes, the femilers, like the sand people. I already forgot their names. The Fremen, sorry. It's like it's so like one dimensional, where it's like half of them are don't believe in Timothy Chalamet, and then half of them do. No in between. There's no nuance here. It's like, oh, that's where we're at. And then when you get into his relationship with Zendaya, it's like, oh, I wonder where this is going to go for dramatic tension at the end of the movie. And it's like, well, there you go. So it's just like, no real surprises here in the movie. Also, and I'm just going to say this, I guess this isn't really a fair criticism, but it just is how I feel. It's also just really hard for me to get, like, super engrossed in the world when every 5 seconds there's a celebrity jump scare. It's like Nolan and Villeneuve, I feel like they're falling into this trap where it's like every time they make a movie, it's like they have to, every single role has to be a famous celebrity, you know? It was the same with Oppenheimer. And now these Dune movies where it's like, I really can't, it's hard for me to find these characters to be super believable when it's like, I just see Timothy Chalamet as Paul. I just see Zendaya as Shari. I just see Florence Pugh. And Thanos. It's like, there's Thanos, Josh Brolin. And it's just like, and then so it's hard for me when all of them are celebrities, and then it's like they're not even putting on like an accent or anything. It's like at least like Timothy Chalamet just sounds like Timothy Chalamet. Zendaya just sounds like Zendaya. Josh Brolin just sounds like Josh Brolin. I'm like, what the, can you at least do the Star Wars thing where you put on a British accent or something? I was like, I don't know. Like, I know that's like tropey, but it helps. And I was like, I also just don't think that Timothy Chalamet is just like particularly good in these movies. It's like there are a lot of moments where it's like his character is changing, and I'm like, sit down, little bro. It's like I don't believe you in this. I don't buy you. Like, and yeah, like when Timothy Chalamet is like trying to seduce Zendaya in the movie, it's like I don't see Paul seducing Shari or whatever. I just see Timothy Chalamet having Elriz. You know what I mean? I don't know. But listen, I also just want to be clear. I am in the vast minority here. Fully acknowledge that. Let me actually look up the Rotten Tomatoes score here. I mean, yeah, it has a 94% critic score and a 95% audience score. I fully acknowledge that I am in the vast minority here. So it's like, should you go watch it? Yeah. I mean, you're probably going to like it. I don't know. I wish I loved this as much as everybody else. Cause you know, and I even went into it with tempered expectations. Cause like I saw all the critics coming out and being like, this is literally the best movie ever made. Like I saw all that and I was like, okay, well, yeah, I heard you say that when the first movie came out. So I went into it with tempered expectations and I was still kind of just like, it's fine. So it is indeed fine. But yeah, if you've seen it, let me know what you think about it. And also, if you love it and you think that it is the best thing since sliced bread, let me know. I want to also know if you've read the books. And listen, this is me mind reading. This is me I fully acknowledge that this is me coming up with reasons for why other people enjoy a thing. But I do feel like, this is just how I feel. I feel like that a lot of the people that really love these movies, I feel like one of the major reasons is because they love the books. And I feel like the books are maybe just far better written than the movies are. And because this is like sort of playing out more so than or this is like playing out like relatively in sync with the books maybe, or it's like, or this adaptation is like well done enough that they're able to add in a lot of extra context and a lot of extra characterization from the books and like imbue it onto this movie. And as somebody like me who's never read any of the books and is just kind of, I'm just kind of like watching these movies, I only have what the movie is giving me. and I'm just like not that impressed with it. And I just don't care about any of these characters. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm sure. Obviously, there are people that have never read the books and love these movies as well. So that's not necessarily a thing either. But that is how I feel. And feel free to yell at me in the comments about it. And let me know about anything that we've talked about here on this episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.